Trek favorites. What are yours? Welcome to Trek Favorites. This is the show where you get to hear from some of my friends about some of their favorite Star Trek and find out why it resonates with them. I'm Chuck Joyner, and I'm happy to welcome to Trek Favorites Mr. Ken Ray of Mission Log Live, macOS Ken, and lots of other projects. Ken, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, Chuck. Thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm delighted to have you and John as a couple of the first guests here to help me kick off Trek Favorites and find out maybe what goes on inside your head about Star Trek when you're not doing Mission Log.
Well, okay. Can you watch Star Trek without watching it like you're doing Mission Log? I guess if you don't do Mission Log, then sure, that's probably easy. But yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the Mission Log mindset as far as the analysis. I mean, but I love listening to what comes out of you and John, and you've at times you've given me new appreciations for the episodes. So we'll see if that happens here again.
Cool.
So this one, when I ask you to pick a favorite, not your favorite, but a favorite, because that's the whole idea with Star Trek. You can't just pick one.
Mm-hmm.
You pick season 2, episode 13, I believe, Times Squared.
Yes.
Why? What resonated with you?
It's not a straightforward episode. It's one of the weirder ones, full of mind bleepery, as we say on Mission Log. For people who don't remember which one this is, the Enterprise is out there on the way to some planet. But they're in deep space. There are no other ships around. There's no settlement around. There's nothing around. And they get kind of an emergency beacon from a Starfleet shuttle. And they go and they find the Starfleet shuttle. And it turns out not only is it one of the shuttles from the Enterprise, but Captain Picard is in that shuttle. But Captain Picard is on the bridge. So now there are 2 Captain Picards there. And the whole thing is him, kind of trying to come to terms with that fact, first of all. And then what is it that led him there? And then we come to find out that the Enterprise, where that Picard is from, which is 6 hours in the future, has been destroyed. And so Picard then has to deal with all these different things, like, why would I not be on the ship if the ship was destroyed? And how was the ship destroyed? And can we avoid this? All of which is kind of interesting, but it all struck me as sort of allegorical. And so it has, since we watched it and since we did our analysis, it just resonates with me in ways that I know it doesn't for a lot of people. So that's fine. It tends to be sort of surprising when I choose it to talk about. So yeah, that's kind of my initial take on it.
And I was especially, this is exactly what I would hoped would happen with Trek Favorites, is that some of the most respected people and some of my best friends would come up with episodes that don't resonate with me. And this is one where I've watched it in preparation for this, rewatched it. Of course, I've watched it a number of times before. Mm-hmm. And I get kind of, I appreciate it from a time travel standpoint. And I kind of wish they'd maybe made it just a little more straightforward. I mean, I don't want to lead you anywhere. I want you to just tell me why it resonates with you so much. What you say it's allegorical in what fashion?
Well, okay. So for me, it is. I mean, that's the really cool thing about episodes of Star Trek, right? Especially the ones that are not straightforward. I mean, if you have something like the Corbomite maneuver, let's say, or let's do I, Borg. Actually, that's a better one, because that one surprised me. When we did I, Borg on Mission Log, it came down to one choice, right? We have this Borg, Hugh. We can send him back to the collective with a computer virus that will wipe out the Borg. That will end the threat of the Borg. And it comes down to Picard deciding, do we do that or do we not do that? And the amount of mail that we got from people saying Picard made a mistake, he absolutely should have done that, stymied both me and John. We're less surprised now when we get those kinds of emails because we got a lot of them around iBorg. But I mean, that's very much a, here is this binary choice, right? For me personally, with Times Squared, it had a different feel to it. I had a family member at the time who was, well, he called himself a recovering alcoholic, but, leave off the recovering part. Maybe he wanted to be, but he wasn't. He was a practicing alcoholic. And I've also had 12-step stuff in my past, parents and other family members who've done various, 12-step group kind of things, not all Al-Anon or Alcoholics Anonymous or things like that, but along those lines. And so there was a lot of stuff that was happening in Times Squared that sort of spoke to me on that level. When Picard shows up and Picard sees himself, he's comatose. He's out of it. He can't see. He doesn't know what's going on. He can't even speak. And the Picard who can move and who can talk is just disgusted by this other Picard, right? But the thing is, something has led him to be there. He has made some choice that's gotten him there. And when you introduce the idea that it's a time loop, we don't know how many times he's been there. We don't know how many times he's done this. Which reminds me of the whole 12-step thing. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Picard is the captain. What he says is going to go. He makes edicts in that episode that everybody falls in line with. They absolutely have to because he's the captain, right? Where this started to be something for me was it seemed to me like he was an alcoholic father or a person who was dealing with some sort of substance abuse, something. Why did I see that? I don't know exactly, but that's, every time I watch it, that's the kind of thing I see. Not so much from Picard's behavior, but from everybody else's behavior around him. Because a lot of them, with the exception of Pulaski, go immediately into defensive mode, go immediately into there's nothing wrong mode. They might talk to him about there being a problem, but if anybody else brings up anything like, he's being kind of weird, isn't he? Like Troy, like nearly launches at Pulaski when she says, I don't know that he can actually do this. And not really rationally, I think, but loyally, Deanna starts defending Picard left, right, and center. Same sort of thing happens with Riker at one point. Picard makes a decision. We're going to go do this. And Riker says that is absolutely the right thing to do. And then Picard says, wait, unless that was the thing I did before, so I shouldn't do that. And Riker practically says again, that is absolutely the right thing to do. So, I mean, there was just a lot that spoke to me on some level. And here's the thing. As I sit here and try to say that, I don't know that it makes any sense. I do know that about a year and a half after we did that episode, we got an email from somebody who said that they had, in the past 7 months, I think it was, worked through an addiction issue. And the thing that got them to do that was my read on Times Squared. So even if that episode wasn't the one that, does it for me, the fact that something that I saw in it and then set out there ended up changing someone's life for the better, I mean, that's always going to be one of my favorite episodes now, even if I come to a place where I don't like it anymore. Although I can tell you, last time I was watching it, preparing for this, I nearly started crying during part of it, because there's just something, they're all caught in something dangerous. And they're all guided, well, Picard at one point really is just guided by fear. And he has to do something that may not work, that's completely antithetical to what he would do, But doing that, moving forward, another self-helpy kind of thing is the only way around it is through it. That's literally what they do in that episode. They're trying to figure out, how can we break free of this thing? What if I go over here? Maybe that'll give you time to escape. And finally, Picard just goes back to the bridge and he's like, right, gun it. We're going straight forward because we can't get around this. We have to get through it. And of course, once they actually do that, it's better.
Okay, so the moment on the bridge that Picard exhibits that I'm going to do A, and Riker says, yes, no, maybe I should do B, that was, in my opinion, the finest moment of the episode, because it really did demonstrate that indecision. I think the thing that bothered me a little bit about the episode was that from the get-go, I mean, as soon as they found the second Picard and saw the recording of the Enterprise being destroyed, there seemed to be such a focus on why would you be off the Enterprise? And that seemed to me to be inconsistent with Picard, who has always, a lot like Kirk, the safety of the ship comes first. And so instead of doing a little bit of navel gazing and saying, why was I off the ship? And how could I possibly do that? It felt like it was a little too focused on Picard. At least for my taste, it didn't seem like they were asking the right questions, or the questions that if you and I were in a similar situation that we might ask. Okay, the first priority is how do we save the ship, not who is where, when. And that may be just the way I interpreted it, but it took me off center for a while. What you said about Pulaski and Troy, their discussion, I agree. I mean, I was a little bit surprised at Troy not recognizing some of those stressors or ignoring them. That surprised me too. So I had never, honestly, until you said this, and I remember listening to the mission log episode, and I've intentionally not gone back and listened so that this discussion wouldn't be tainted with that. You've reminded me of that. I had forgotten all about your take from that angle on it.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those episodes to me. Is it? What's the one that's set in sort of like an old West town in the original series? Not Day of the Gun. Is it Day of the Gun? Something like that. Way of the Gun. I think I'm actually naming an old Western now. But if you watch that episode, it looks like the set of Our Town, right? They're not even trying to tell you, hey, they've actually gone to an old West planet. I mean, there's something sort of impressionistic is not the right word, but there's basically something very deconstructed about that set. So if you're trying to figure out how that episode folds into, how did that get us to Star Trek 6? I mean, there were episodes of the original series and some episodes of Next Gen as well. I mean, that could have just as easily been Twilight Zone. Yes, that was Captain Picard, but we're not talking about Starfleet and how Starfleet works. We're not really talking about chain of command in a military organization. We're talking about Dad's drunk. And that is usually fine because he doesn't usually get us killed. But now we're dealing with something real and something dangerous, right? And how everybody deals with that is kind of interesting. I mean, now they don't say that in there. Again, this is just my read on it. It's just, for some reason, no matter how many times I watch it, that's one of the things I get. One of the other things I get, honestly, is Picard is practically paralyzed by fear, which fear plays a much bigger part in my life than I want it to. You go to Discovery, Saru for the first season was one of the greatest characters in Star Trek, all of it, as far as I'm concerned, for the first season. Second season, once he loses his fear, he becomes uninteresting to me because now he's just sort of this mouthy, brassy, funny, certainly, and he'll have the other characters back, but he's lost the defining character for me. The defining character of Saru for me was every moment is fear, but he's not going to be paralyzed by it. Every moment is something scary, but there are things that he wants to do more than be afraid. And so even though he's going to be afraid, he's going to do those things. That's a lot of what this episode was for me as well. Picard is very frightened that he's going to get everybody killed, but he's got to do something. And then when he's having the discussion with Picard, the other Picard, about what they're going to do, I mean, there's that moment, right? The other Picard, the one who came in the shuttle, is like, I got to get off this ship. That we're going to save the ship. And our Picard is like, no, there's got to be another way. What's the other way? And he's like, no, we thought about it. There's no other way. Oh, you thought about it. Okay, what were the other ways? And so then he starts quizzing them all. And then finally, he hits on the one that scares himself the most. And when he sees how frightened he is by that, well, then there's nothing else he can do but the thing that he's most afraid to do, because that's the one thing he hasn't tried, even though doing the same thing over and over again, expecting something different, has gotten everybody killed who knows how many times. I mean, it just, again, I mean, and none of that's actually on screen. None of that is stated. None of that is spoken. My favorite episodes of Star Trek, though, are the ones that you can go and interpret yourself. The stuff where they fought this person, or, you know, where the ones about conflict are the ones that are the least interesting to me, unless it's internal conflict. I mean, I had a hard time not picking The Enemy Within. And it's kind of interesting, and this is something I know that we talked about on the episode of Mission Log. Picard ends up killing himself in this episode, which is the kind of thing that you would expect Kirk to do. But in Enemy Within, Kirk sees the part of himself that he doesn't like, and he ends up hugging it. He ends up having to embrace the thing that he does not like about himself to save himself. Picard, at least in this episode, ends up killing the part of himself that he doesn't like to get through it. Which, if you're talking about, you know, somebody who's dealing with if you're talking about somebody who's dealing with substance abuse, or if you're talking about somebody who's dealing with fear, to be able to just kill that part of yourself would be fantastic. It's also kind of a weird thing, though, because so much of Star Trek has been about accepting the parts of yourself that you don't like. Go to, what is the episode? Taste of Armageddon, when Kirk is talking about how difficult war should be. And he talks about the fact, I think it was A Taste of Armageddon, where they talk about the fact, well, you know, you're savages and you're going to revert to savagery. And Kirk's like, yeah, I am a savage. I wake up every day and I say, I'm not going to kill today. I mean, so much of Star Trek has been about knowing there are parts of who we are that we don't like, but we have to accept them, you know, as just being part of who we are. That doesn't interest Picard at all, which is a weird sort of antithetical message from Star Trek. Like the part in the end where he and Riker are talking to each other, and Picard says the thing about, it is said that if you travel far enough, you'll eventually meet yourself. Having done it, it's not something I want to do again. I mean, it's a really weird message from Picard. He's like, I don't even want to talk about that, which is also very much not Star Trek. And yet somehow that is an episode that speaks to me.
As you were describing this, I couldn't help but think about Star Trek V and, you know, Kirk's decision that he needs his pain.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that, I mean, it seems like we're hopping episodes, which is fine.
Right.
But I think that was a very interesting take on, you know, something that we all have to deal with. I mean, whatever our pain is, you know, whether it's actions or something, our actions, our reactions to something that's happened to us, or something that just has happened to us, you've got to figure out a way to deal with it. And to take this back to Times Squared, the idea of just pushing right through it, I mean, that appeals to me, because I think that's something that sometimes that's what you just got to do. But it seems like that's something that Picard would have automatically done regardless.
Well, except that he's trying to save everybody else, right? I mean, he would do that himself, no question. In fact, that's the reason he left the Enterprise, because he thought that his trouble would follow him. He thought that he would be, you know, destroyed and everybody else would live. What's weird, though, is even having seen proof that that's not going to work, he still wants to do that. And he still wants to do that for, again, who knows for, which number of times he's done that at that point. So just the idea that he has to think of something else to do is kind of interesting to me. There's another thing actually that I had forgotten about watching this. It became a running joke on Mission Log about Riker's really horrible eggs, because he makes those horrible eggs at the beginning of the episode. The only one who can eat them is Worf, who absolutely loves them. It's one of the first times I remember seeing everybody sort of gather in a place. We are, as you and I record this, John and I are on season 3 of Deep Space Nine. And Cisco just had everybody over to his quarters for dinner. Everybody but Quark, of course, just had everybody over to his quarters for dinner. And that's an interesting sort of moment to reach in, the individual. Well, as Star Trek moves along, you were never going to have that in the original series, but of course in Star Trek 5 they went camping. I mean, it's interesting to see them finally not shed their rules exactly, but that sort of evolves into the poker game, I think, that we see in later TNG. That's also kind of a fun thing as well. Mostly though it's the Picard stuff. Mostly it's the having to deal with stuff from which you'd rather flee that really kind of does it for me.
I guess maybe I need to go back and rewatch the episode in light of this conversation, because maybe I was looking at things, as I tend to do, a little too literally. One thing that bothered me greatly were the energy bolts that hit Picard.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody's saying shields up. Nobody's saying intruder alert. No, it's just there's an energy bolt. Somehow it appeared on the bridge. And,
right.
I struggle with that. And look, I know it's a TV show, and I know that there has to be a bit of dramatic license. And you aren't supposed to explain everything. But in any other circumstance, I mean, if somebody sneezes, it's an intruder alert. And here, it's just, okay, the captain just got knocked down by an energy bolt and nothing. No Dr. Plasky to the bridge, no nothing.
I miss that Star Trek, honestly. I miss the Star Trek where you could be, because if this were Discovery, they would be trying to figure out, okay, well, how did they do this? And when did they do that? And how would they get it in? And we would explain and we would say why this happened and all this stuff. And Star Trek used to be, hey, we came to a planet and there's Apollo. Really? Okay. Hey, the ship is being held by a giant green hand. Really? Hey, there's this weird old West town that, shouldn't be here. Okay. And they did sort of the same thing in the first few seasons of Next Gen as well, where you would have, I'm having trouble thinking, the Royale, for example. I mean, you spent most of that episode not knowing what the heck was going on. Honestly, I don't remember how it ends. It's just very strange that you're in this hotel from the 1920s, the whole time. I mean, Star Trek used to not be afraid to do sort of a Twilight Zone thing, but never pointing to it like, wow, this is a strange thing. It was just like stuff would happen. And it was sort of left open to your interpretation in a way. And those tend to be some of the most interesting episodes to me. The problem that you get to is you come to something like Masks, which seemed like it should be trying to say something, but in the end, it really wasn't trying to say anything near as we could figure. There was another episode from Deep Space Nine from the first or second season. I can't remember the name of it, but it was written by the same guy. I think it was written by Joe Menosky. And it had the same sort of feel of Masks, where all of a sudden everybody is taking on these different roles, but they're not actually saying anything as themselves. They're not saying anything about the human condition. And there's absolutely no repercussion to anything that happens. It's pretty much 45 minutes of just, well, this is weird. Weird for weird's sake doesn't do it for me. And I know this was an episode, Time Squared was an episode that just rolled off John's back. He didn't feel anything from it, so he didn't really feel anything for it. And I can't explain why. I mean, we've had that happen too, where he'll see something amazingly, incredibly deep in an episode that I'm just like, I don't know. Maybe I watched the wrong episode this week. I don't know.
But that's why Mission Log works. I think, is the two of you. Sometimes you agree, sometimes you don't agree. And while this show is not supposed to be mission log, and it's not mission log, but
Yeah.
this is exactly why what I hope will happen on a more frequent basis. That I don't agree with my guests, and they can teach me something, and maybe I can point out some things that bother them. But I felt okay. So to go back to the big green hand in TOS, and
Mhm.
to the Western, it just felt like there was just I didn't need a detailed explanation. It just felt like there was enough of an explanation to keep me in the show, in the moment.
Mhm.
If I remember correctly, the big green hand, that was described as, a set of force fields that just happened to resemble a big green hand. But, okay, that's good enough. I buy that. I Johnny Carson's old line: if you buy the premise, you buy the bit. Okay, so I bought the premise and I bought the bit. And
Mhm.
here, I never got the premise given to me, so I was having trouble buying the bit.
Hmm. I
That's,
don't know. I mean, like I say, you can have hours of debate about whether or not what a character did was right or wrong, like going back to something like IHU or iBorg, excuse me. Um, Personally, I love the ones where it's just like, where the very first thing after is like, what was that? You know what I mean? I mean, if you can do that, and if you care enough, there was the first time I saw School Days, the Spike Lee movie School Days. I hated it. I hated that movie because it didn't seem to know if it wanted to be a comedy, excuse me, or a drama, or a love story, or there were musical numbers, and there was just all this stuff, and I was like, what? What was that? Except 4 days later, the friends I saw it with and I were still debating it. And at that point, it became one of my favorite movies ever because I couldn't get so much of that movie out of my head. And I like episodes of Star Trek that are like that. I'm gonna bash Discovery just for a second. They don't let anything happen without explaining to you exactly why this thing is happening and exactly how it's going to be fixed. And then they spend a lot of time telegraphing how that's going to happen. Assume that I'm invested enough that I'm either going to let it slide or I'm going to make up those things myself because I'm a relatively creative person. I'm a relatively intelligent person. I don't need you to tell me, okay, now put your left foot in front of the right foot. Okay, now put the right foot in front. Hey, look. Okay, now put the other one. I mean, that's what a lot of times television today honestly feels like to me. So I kind of like the fact that they rolled the dice on this one, that they didn't explain every single thing, because had they tried to explain exactly what happened in that episode, it wouldn't be open to interpretation anymore. And if it's not open to interpretation, then you don't get the wild leaps that you might get, that somebody later said kind of saved their life. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like somebody hands you a coloring book and just says, color a dog, and then you like look in there and there's not actually a picture of a dog here. Well, you make one. I mean, it's kind of fun to be handed pieces and see what you can make of it, as opposed to being told, no, this is exactly what this is, and this is exactly what this looks like, and this is exactly why it's this way. And I hope you had fun.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask a question, then I'm gonna throw you an example of
Okay.
why I might be wrong. Part of me says that this may
Wait,
have had
there's no wrong though. I mean,
well,
that's the thing. I could be
well,
wrong about what this episode is. I mean, there's no. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
but in my example may be wrong.
Okay.
Why I may be wrong, but part of me wonders if some of this had to do with just the storytelling style at that point, as opposed to now, because now we are all very much more technological beings,
Mm-hmm.
and we need. I don't know if we need, but it's, at least in the world you and I inhabit, it feels like we all need explanations for things. And so maybe that's the nature of the audience of the 21st century. Now I'll flip it around, and one of the reasons I think I might be wrong. Did you watch the first season, or have you started watching the second season of Legion?
No, I have not.
Okay, you need to watch this. And
Okay.
that's all I'm going to say, because, and then maybe you and I can start a Legion podcast, because I'd love to hear
Cool.
your interpretations. It is well worth your time. Trust me.
Okay. All right.
Trust.
I wish then I could address what you're saying, but since I haven't, I don't know. Here's the one thing I will say. Back in the 70s, Gene Roddenberry was saying that people don't need to have things spoon-fed to them. I think television has always kind of wanted to do that. I honestly think it's a little bit worse now because we can take television wherever we go. And so they have to keep reminding you of what happened because you might be on the bus while you're watching it, or you might be, at the gym running on a treadmill while you're watching this show. Television is not as must-see TV doesn't exist anymore. There's not appointment viewing. You're never going to get goodbye, farewell, and amen again. Try explaining to a kid, right? Like that the New York sewer system nearly broke that night because nobody was getting up from the TV, and we were all watching TV at the exact same time. I wasn't in New York, but we were all watching TV at the exact same time. When baby Ricky was born on I Love Lucy. I mean, the only thing we might get like that now is the Super Bowl, and even that most people don't care about. Well, I shouldn't say most people don't care about anymore, but I know that ratings keep going down for that. Plus, they keep giving you different places and ways to watch it. So there are two things. I think a lot of times writers might be afraid that somebody's going to miss something because we don't watch TV in the same way. And the other thing is, I think there's always been this desire to spell out for people rather than, not always, not with everybody, but a lot of times there's been a desire to spell out for people exactly what's happening rather than, trusting. I can't remember the exact Gene Roddenberry quote, but it was basically something along the lines of, unlike a lot of people in television, we don't think the people on the other side of the tube are idiots. And I think a lot of times people, writers, producers are afraid that if they leave something to be questioned, that people will just think it's dumb and they'll turn off until they explain, step by step, everything.
And maybe, I don't know that I have to have everything explained, but as I said before, sometimes I just need just enough to hook it, connect the dots a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't need all the dots.
I wasn't, because that sounds like I'm insulting you now. I wasn't referring to what you were talking about. I was more thinking about what you were saying about viewing habits in the 21st century. I think that might be a reason that we get stuff handed to us more because they might be handing it to us on the bus or at the gym. Or
I think that's a great point. I mean, you're right. It's for me to sit down and watch a TV show and do nothing else, not be looking up the actor or answering an email or something, is becoming increasingly rare. And I realize that I lose something. I mean, that is one of the reasons I don't think the theaters are going to go away anytime soon, because the theater is the one place where you go and you have to give your full attention to what it is that's in front of you. Mm-hmm. Because if you watch your phone or doing anything like that, you'll probably get thrown out because the people around you who have paid $20 with you to see the movie are not going to tolerate it.
I want to go to your movie theater because there never seems to be a problem with people checking their phone at the ones I go to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's kind of a drag.
Okay.
I'll come by. Yeah, we'll go see a movie. Yeah. What do you want to see?
I haven't seen Spider-Man yet, so
I haven't seen Spider-Man yet either. Okay, we're not going to do that because we've got too much other stuff to do, and plus we're on literally opposite sides of the country now. But otherwise, this sounds like a plan.
All right, sounds good. So we'll just wait until Spider-Man gets into the third run theaters, and by that time we'll calm down.
Yeah, sure. That'll be fine.
I like it. Ken, thank you. This has been frankly, it's been enlightening. I haven't been through some of the challenges you've been through, and that you were referring to earlier. And maybe if I had, I would see this one a little bit differently. But you've made me look at it a little differently. So I think I know what I'll be doing tonight after this.
Well, I didn't mean to, and you're welcome.
Yeah. We will see you in Vegas for Star Trek Las Vegas.
Heck yeah, I'll be there. Yes, we got panels. We've got all kinds of. Will people see this before that?
If that is my intention, let's hope.
Okay,
that's my intention.
Well, then, yes, let me say we have all kinds of panels. I don't know if John and I are going to be part of the Roddenberry panel or not, but of course, there's the Roddenberry panel in the big room. And then John and I will have a mission log panel. And then the Roddenberry Podcast Network is also going to have a panel trying to figure out how it is we get from where we are now to the 24th century Star Trek ideal. Presenting that in really a fun way. I hope, fingers crossed, we're planning on presenting it in a fun way. You'll have to come and see for yourself.
I look forward to it. And of course, I have to mention Mac OS Ken, the daily Mac podcast, because we're both Mac podcasters,
Right.
which is it is the first thing I listen to in the morning. So thank you for all that you do there.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
I hope you'll come back and pick another Trek favorite and see if we can agree on that one.
Sure. It was very difficult, honestly, like the Corbomite maneuver, the enemy within. Other ones, it was very difficult to choose one. So yeah, if I get to come back and pick another sometime, I'm here.
Okay. I may have you pick a favorite discovery. No, probably not.
No, I can do that. There's one.
There's one.
Well, favorite. We all have one favorite. So yes, there's one.
One favorite out of what, 2 seasons now as we record this.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take it. Thanks, Ken. Good to see you.
Thanks, Chuck.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Trek Favorites. I want to make sure you remember that you can see the video version of this on our YouTube channel, and you can listen to the audio version via podcast and connect with us on Facebook and Twitter. Until the next time, thanks for listening. Visit TrekFavorites.com to access all our shows, watch the video versions on our YouTube channel, and connect with us on Twitter and Facebook as @TrekFavorites.